Daily routine, presenting and reading petitions. I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth South.
I would like to introduce some guests who are here for my petition. Could we revert to petitions after when guests are in the gallery?
Yeah, please do.
Thank you. Okay.
I recognize the honourable member of Halifax-Chebucto.
Madam Speaker, may we ask for unanimous consent to revert in 5 minutes to the presenting and reading of petitions so that our guests who are here for petitions will be present for that?
Is it agreed? It is agreed. Presenting reports of committees. Tabling reports, regulations, and other papers. Statements by ministers. Government notices of motion. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following congratulatory resolution. Whereas Atlantic Open Farm Day is marking its 24th year with tours of farms, ranches, and agritourism businesses throughout Nova Scotia and the other Atlantic provinces this Sunday, September 15th. And whereas this province-wide, well-loved and free event is an opportunity for Nova Scotians to meet their local farmers, learn about farm life in person, and get a close-up look at animals, equipment, crops, and hard work that are all part of making a living in agriculture. And whereas people unable to visit a farm in person on Open Farm Day can enjoy the educational experience of a virtual farm visit online with all the details about participating farms available at atlanticopenfarmday.ca. Therefore, be it resolved that members of this House join me in thanking the Nova Scotia Federation of Agriculture for coordinating the Nova Scotia portion of Atlantic Open Farm Day and encouraging all Nova Scotians to take part this Sunday, September 15th. Madam Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for a waiver. Is it agreed? It is agreed. Would all those in favour of the motion please say aye? Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Addictions and Mental Health.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave to make an introduction.
Please do.
We have a special guest in the Speaker's Gallery here today that I would like to introduce. Joining us today is Holly Carr. Holly is a talented author and artist whose exhibit, Light in the Forest, will be on display at the Museum of Natural History for the next 2 months. Holly has also published a new children's book, The Comfort Tree, which is a companion book for Light in the Forest. Light in the Forest brings art, nature, and mental wellness together through an immersive display that includes interactive stations and the journey through an animated world where guests are introduced to the forest and its inhabitants through music, art, dance, and spoken word. I would ask my colleagues to give a warm welcome to Holly to the legislature.
Welcome. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Addictions and Mental Health.
I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas world-renowned Nova Scotia artist Holly Carr's newest exhibit, Light in the Forest, shines a light on youth mental health and wellness, and whereas Light in the Forest is a perfect example of the healing and power of art by helping to guide people to mental health support and resources in their community in an engaging and interactive way. And whereas Holly's exhibit is currently on display at the Nova Scotia Museum of Natural History before it continues its travels throughout the province spreading a message of hope. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House join me in congratulating Holly on her exhibit and offer a sincere thank you for her continued work to show us that there is always light and hope. Madam Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for a waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. It is agreed. Would all those in favour of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried. I recognize the Honourable member for Halifax-Chebucto.
Madam Speaker, could I say a word of introduction?
Please do.
Well, I want all the members of the Nova Scotia House of Assembly to be sitting up straight this morning because you're in the presence of Nora Archer Saeed Yassin, my 8-month-old granddaughter. who's with my daughter-in-law, Alia Yassin Saeed. So we're awful glad to have them here this morning. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Absolutely adorable. Welcome to the house. I hope you enjoy your first time. I recognize the Honourable Minister for Community Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to draw everyone's attention to the Speaker's Gallery, where I'd like to introduce Nick and Heather Samuel of the Salvation Army. They're the new captains that run the Salvation Armies in Spryfield. Welcome to Spryfield, and we thank you for all you do.
Welcome and thank you. Thank you for your service. I recognize the Honourable Member for Dartmouth South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask that we revert to the presenting and reading of petitions.
We'll now revert to presenting petitions. I recognize the Honourable Member for Dartmouth South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to make an introduction.
Please do.
Thank you. I want to introduce a few guests in our gallery associated with this petition. In the gallery, we have some members of the Coastal Coalition representing citizens of Nova Scotia, and I ask that you would rise when I read your name to accept the warm welcome of the House. We have Lil McPherson, Karen Eileen Robb, Marnie Gail Reynolds, Sandra M. Martin, and Lindris Scherzinger. I ask that all members give these Coastal Crusaders the warm welcome of the House.
Welcome, and we hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the Honourable Member for Dartmouth South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to introduce a petition of signatures collected from across the province, the operative clause of which reads, "Therefore, we, the residents of Nova Scotia, call upon the Government of Nova Scotia to proclaim the Coastal Protection Act and complete the associated regulations to ensure consistent enforcement of the provisions set out in the Act." The petition has 2,719 signatures, and my signature is affixed accordingly as per the rules.
The petition is tabled. Do we have any more petitions? I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax-Chebucto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to present a petition which reads as follows. Whereas over a quarter of those who are homeless for the first time are over the age of 60, and whereas nearly 6,000 people are on the wait list for public housing with an average wait time of 2 years, therefore be it resolved that the provincial government ban evictions of seniors whose incomes would qualify them for public housing until there's a place in public housing for them to go. This petition has been signed by several residents of York and Cedar Streets in the constituency of Halifax-Chebucto, and I have also signed it.
The petition is tabled. We will now revert back to notice of motions. Is there any further notice of motions? Or, sorry, government business of motions. No. Introduction of bills. Notice it. Oh, I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax, Citadel, Sable Island.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 3 of the Acts of 2019, the Coastal Protection Act.
The honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 3 of the Acts of 2019, the Coastal Protection Act.
Bill 485, an act to amend Chapter 3 of the Acts of 2019, the Coastal Protection Act.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future date. I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 7 of the Acts of 2011, the Fair Drug Pricing Act, to expand access to PrEP.
The honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 7 of the Acts of 2011, the Fair Drug Pricing Act, to expand access to PrEP.
Bill 486, an act to amend Chapter 7 of the Acts of 2011, the Fair Drug Pricing Act, to expand access to PrEP.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. Notices of motion. I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Chebucto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the Coastal Protection Act was passed through third reading with unanimous all-party support, then received royal assent in 2019, making Nova Scotia the only province in Canada with an Environmental Protection Act specifically focused on the coast, but was not subsequently proclaimed by the government. With the result that the Act, though duly passed in every aspect by the House of Assembly, has never become part of the law of the province of Nova Scotia. And whereas other duly passed legislation in Nova Scotia has met the same fate, most notably the Security and Investigative Services Act of 2010, which was only discovered to have never been brought into force by proclamation with the death in 2022 of a second citizen in the very circumstances which the 2010 Act, following a parallel tragedy, had been originally designed to prevent. And whereas citizens have every fair right to expect that when an act passes all the stages of legislative acceptance in the House of Assembly, that it thereby becomes, or is reasonably close to becoming, the law. And further, when that expectation is not met, citizens have every right to be democratically aggrieved. Therefore, be it resolved that this House set aside a period of not less than 2 hours on Tuesday, September 17th, 2024, to consider the proposal that when a piece of duly passed legislation has been left unproclaimed for a period of 3 years, the government must either introduce measures to repeal it or seek the permission of the House for its continued non-proclamation. Yes. Madam Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
Yes. There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? No. There are several nays. The notice of motion is tabled. Statements by members. I recognize the honourable member for Pictou Centre.
Madam Speaker, Corey Hartland, a retired teacher from Glasgow, has made significant contributions to the fields of ancestry and sports research. His dedication to uncovering and preserving family histories has provided invaluable insights into lineages and heritage. Additionally, Corey's meticulous research on sport teams and individual athletes over the past few decades has enriched our understanding of sports history, highlighting the achievements and stories of countless athletes. His work not only celebrates the legacy of sports, but also ensures that the stories of both families and athletes are remembered and honored. These stories and legacies might have otherwise been forgotten. Hartling's efforts have had a lasting impact through his research, and his commitment to excellence continues to inspire others in the research community. The ultimate aim of research is to generate measurable and testable data. Corey's contributions are truly invaluable and deeply appreciated by all who benefit from his research. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Yarmouth.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise today to celebrate the exciting opening of the new NSCC Sydney Waterfront Campus. This project, announced by the previous government in 2019, marks a significant investment in Cape Breton's future. As students begin their first week of classes at this state-of-the-art facility, we are reminded of how important bold investments are in shaping our communities for generations to come. This incredible campus wouldn't have been possible without the advocacy and hard work of the member for Sydney Member 2, who was a champion at the cabinet table for this, as well as the member for Northside Westmount, who was principal of the former Marconi campus and very involved in this project. It also wouldn't have happened without the work of former Minister Jeff McClellan, as well as the vision of former Premier Stephen McNeil, who championed this project from the start. The benefits of this investment will be felt not only by students and faculty this year, but by the entire Cape Breton Island for years to come. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax-Chebucto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I introduce the guest who's the subject of my statement?
Please do.
Thank you. I would like to introduce the House to Polly Gallant-McLean. Polly, if you'd like to stand. Polly, who at the age of 10 is going to be making her feature film debut this evening at the Atlantic Film Festival. And I ask the House to give Polly a warm round of applause.
Welcome, Polly, and congratulations on your roles. I recognize the honourable member for Halifax-Chebucto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We celebrate a young resident of the constituency of Halifax-Chebucto. Polly Gallant-McLean will be making her feature film debut as a principal performer in Monica's News this evening at the Atlantic International Film Festival. In Monica's News, which is directed by Pamela Gallant, no relation, and produced by Terry Greenlaw, Polly plays Casey, an intrepid 9-year-old girl who wages a battle for her own equal rights, but sees her idealism crushed when her beloved feminist cousin is murdered. Polly's been acting on sets throughout Nova Scotia and New Brunswick in the last year or so, appearing twice in This Hour is 22 Minutes and in 5 episodes of Sullivan's Crossing, to name a couple. The daughter of theatre director and writer Alex McLean, who's with her this morning, and healthcare worker and cellist Claire Gallant, Polly comes by her artistic talent honestly, and like her parents, is also kind and generous and very funny. I ask all members of the House to join me in congratulating Polly and the entire cast and crew of Monica's News on the achievement of this new feature film.
I recognize the honourable member for Colchester, Musquodoboit Valley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This Sunday, September the 15th, is the International Day of Democracy. Since it was first established by the United Nations in 2007, governments from all over the world recognize the importance of democracy. Democracy ensures that governments derive their power from the votes cast by citizens, enabling a system that is accountable, transparent, and responsive to the needs of the people. In Nova Scotia, we can proudly say that this is the birthplace of parliamentary democracy, freedom of the press, and responsible government in our country. This has helped shape Canada's democratic institutions and secure the rights and the freedoms that Canadians enjoy today. Let us recognize the symbolism of September the 15th, reminding us of the value of democracy in our province and also our country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Fairview Clayton Park.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave for an introduction.
Please do.
In your gallery are Captain Nicholas and Major Heather Samuel from the Halifax West Community Church, Fairview Citadel. I ask that they rise and receive the warm welcome of the House.
Welcome. I recognize the honourable member for Fairview Clayton Park.
Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to welcome Captain Nicholas and Major Heather Samuel and their family, not only to the House today, but to the Salvation Army Halifax West Community Church in Fairview. Since arriving in July, the Samuels have quickly become integral to our community, making a significant impact on day one. They jumped right into community activities, playing a pivotal role in the success of the Fairview Family Days event that I had the honor of co-hosting. With their leadership in gathering volunteers, they served over 400 guests at the barbecue, providing a memorable day for many families in Fairview Clayton Park. Their energy and dedication already made them valuable members of our community, and their kindness and generosity sets them apart. I look forward to ongoing collaborations as we continue in our shared goal to support and uplift the residents of Fairview Clayton Park. Their active involvement promises to bring more positive changes to our community. Madam Speaker, please join me in extending a warm welcome to the Samuel family and expressing our excitement for what their leadership will bring to our community and to an already blessed and honorable legacy that is the Fairview Citadel. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel, Sable Island.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to make an introduction.
Please do.
Joining us in the West Gallery today, we have Ken Clark, Jane Woodworth, Tori Clark, and Michael Citroni. I would ask that they all rise to receive the warm welcome of the House.
Welcome. We hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel, Sable Island.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to honor Ken Clark from the class of 2024 at Dalhousie University. After beginning his studies in 1961 at Dal, Ken put his studies on hold when he got a job at CBC TV Halifax. His career in media and journalism was off and running. Over the years, he produced variety and news shows for CBC Halifax and helped launch the channels that became CTV Atlantic and Global Halifax. After that, Clark moved to Winnipeg, New Zealand, Fiji, where he introduced an evening news broadcast and received the Order of Fiji, and Papua New Guinea, where he bought a TV station. When he retired in 2020 and returned to Halifax, he hadn't forgotten about his degree, and he asked Dalhousie how he could finish up. He then completed an economics course to finish his degree. Madam Speaker, I ask that we all take Ken Clark's words to heart. Follow your dream, never give up. It's a cliche, I know, but it's the truth.
I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth East.
Madam Speaker, this Sunday, many of our communities will host the Terry Fox Run. So many Nova Scotians have been impacted by cancer, and this day allows us the opportunity to fight back. But it's much more than that. It's our chance to honor Terry Fox, a Canadian hero who set out on a journey running across Canada to raise awareness and funds for cancer research. On May 20th, 1980, Terry Fox came to Dartmouth. In his journal, he wrote, and I quote, "Then I ran to the vocational school with 50 students. They had raised $3,000, a great group of kids." No doubt Terry was referencing what we call NSCC Akerley today. His marathon's purpose, raising money and awareness, remains vital today. In just over 40 years, the Terry Fox Foundation has raised more than $800 million for cancer research. Madam Speaker, Terry Fox's determination continues to inspire Canadians. And this Sunday, let us honor Terry's legacy as we continue to support cancer research at our local Terry Fox Run. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Annapolis.
Madam Speaker, each year exceptional volunteers are honored at the Annapolis County Volunteer Recognition Ceremony. This year, the Clean Annapolis River Project, otherwise known as CARP, nominated Mark Hebert. Mark has been heavily involved with CARP for the past 16 years. He has chaired various CARP committees and been a driving force behind the River Festival since 2018 as both Vice President and President. His contributions to his community go well beyond his work with CARP. He has given his time and efforts to the Annapolis Royal Pool Association, the Association Francophone de la Vallée, l'Association des Familles Acadiennes de Port-Royal, and the Bridgetown Lions Club monthly breakfast. Madam Speaker, I ask that all members of the House of Assembly join me in congratulating Mark Hebert for all that he has done for his community. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Needham.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize the AUBA, the African United Baptist Association. In August, the AUBA celebrated their 171st annual sessions at New Horizons Baptist Church. The messaging was very powerful throughout the whole weekend. Spirits were definitely lifted. I was reminded of the story of Nehemiah. God blesses the work of those who work faithfully. The AUBA has worked hard over the years to grow the vision, and this year's theme for the sessions was, "Now is the time, rebuild, restore, revive," which is so fitting because now is that time. I would like all members to join me in congratulating the AUBA for such a wonderful session and celebrating 171 years. We wish them many more to come.
I recognize the honourable member for Waverley, Fall River and Beaver Bank.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would like to recognize a very special board of directors in Fall River. The Fall River Dragons Minor Football Association resumed activities last year after several years of inactivity due to COVID. In April, a new volunteer board was elected and developed a plan to restore the organization to full operation. Under the leadership of Dale Stewart, a former RCMP officer, the new board has worked diligently to create a welcoming and safe environment for all children while trying to maintain affordable costs for families in the Waverley, Fall River, Beaver Bank communities. Madam Speaker, it is community members like these that not only bring the community together, but create an incredible foundation for our children to thrive. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to recognize the plight of refugee claimants, internationally known as asylum seekers. These are folks who cannot go back home for fear of persecution because of their race, religion, or political beliefs. And some of the hardest workers that I know are people that I've actually hired myself when I was Director of Operations in Ottawa, when I volunteered with the Matthew House there. People from places like Rwanda or Haiti. Some of them tradespeople, went on to be doctors. Talking about better management of our population growth is different when people are actually coming from different provinces and countries. It's different than targeting a subset of newcomers, and statements made by Conservative premiers on their social media do nothing but divide Canadians, tapping into unfounded assumptions about people they know nothing about. Whether Nova Scotians who came from Syria or Ukraine or a long list of other countries, I want to say thank you for your contribution to Nova Scotia. You are welcome here.
Hear, hear. I recognize the honourable member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to recognize the Green family and their team of volunteers at the annual mini bazaar in honoring Valerie Green Andrea. This year, they changed their fundraising efforts. Rising costs are affecting people's ability to make ends meet, and back-to-school costs are expensive. So this year, they decided that instead of awarding their bursary to one graduating student, they would spread the love a bit more and help with multiple students get back to school. They raised the money from the bazaar was used to purchase the school supplies, including a backpack, a lunchbox, water bottle, and one back-to-school outfit, and lunch money for the first day. With gratitude and appreciation, I want to thank the Green family and their team of volunteers for a successful event and the help that they have provided some families with their back-to-school costs. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Glace Bay Dominion.
Madam Speaker, for more than 20 years, Murdoch Sampson has been a driving force behind his various sports teams. His is a life dedicated to improving the lives of his athletes. His passion for coaching is evident in his relentless commitment to his players' development. He teaches not only the skills needed to win, but the values of discipline, teamwork, and perseverance. In basketball, he's known for his strategic mind and the ability to inspire his players to give their all in every game. On the baseball diamond, his deep understanding of the game helps his players excel in every aspect. In the bowling alley, Murdoch's keen eye to technique and his motivational coaching style has led many to personal bests and to league titles. Coach Murdoch's legacy is one of dedication, and each season adds another glorious chapter to his unwavering commitment to his players. Thank you for all you do for our community, Murdoch, and for our youth.
I recognize the honourable member for Sydney, member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in my place to recognize a wonderful young man that we lost in our community a few years ago, and is Trevor Rutherford. Trevor comes from a wonderful family. His parents, Walter and Kathy, are well known in our community, and as well his brother and his best buddy, Mark. And the community knows Trevor. Nothing could keep him down. He was a big part of the sports community in Cape Breton. You would find him at any basketball court or tennis court, which he was a lifetime member of Cromarty, any sporting event, but particularly he had season tickets to the Cape Breton Screaming Eagles. And he loved the Eagles. He loved going to the hockey games, and I can tell you that the community loved him very much. He was a big part of many lives around the Sydney area, and I rise in my place to send my love to Walter and Kathy, Mark, and remember a great guy that a lot of people in our community really miss. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today I'm very pleased to rise and recognize registered nurse Barbie Cook and thank her for her unwavering commitment to the delivery of health care in our area. Barbie is currently the Northern Zone Director of Integrated Rural Health with Nova Scotia Health, and for several years she was the site manager for both North Cumberland Memorial Hospital in Pugwash as well as the Lillian Fraser Hospital in Tatamagouche. And with that role came responsibility for leading the team that built the new North Cumberland Healthcare Centre. Working with colleagues from Build Nova Scotia Health, and various contractors, Barbie and physician lead Dr. Brian McFarland worked tirelessly for months, and in fact years, to take the vision of a combined primary healthcare clinic, emergency care, and acute care facility and design it to serve the community of the Pugwashan area now and into the future. Madam Speaker, please join me in congratulating the staff and physicians, and in particular Barbie Cook, on the opening of the new North Cumberland Healthcare Centre. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave to make an introduction relative to my member statement.
Please do.
Joining us in the West Gallery today is Dr. Kathy Russell, her father, Leslie Russell, family members Aidan Russell and Sarah Pollard, and I invite them to stand and receive the warm welcome of the House.
Welcome. We all hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to honor Dr. Kathy Russell, who will be the 2025 recipient of the American Association of Orthodontists Humanitarian Award. Dr. Russell has been selected to receive this award because of her exceptional contributions towards improving the quality of life, extending beyond the usual scope of private practice, academic functions, or organized dentistry. Through her work as a professor at Dalhousie's Faculty of Dentistry, Dr. Russell conducts research on the support of patients with craniofacial abnormalities, with a particular focus on cleft lip and palate. Dr. Russell currently holds the position of chair and orthodontist of the cleft palate team at the IWK and works with a number of organizations, including the American Cleft Palate Association, About Face, Operation Smile, and the Nova Scotia MSI Cleft Palate Program. Dr. Russell has treated both of my children, and so I can personally attest to her patience and determination in the face of even the most challenging of patients. Madam Speaker, I'd like to conclude by congratulating Dr. Russell on this outstanding achievement and by thanking her for all the valuable work she has done in our community to earn it.
I recognize the honourable member for Victoria the Lakes.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on July 22nd, while residents and visitors of Pontlatek Island were preparing for St. Anne's Mission, a fire broke out. 5 cabins caught fire, and because it was such a windy day, the blaze seemed impossible to contain. Jennifer Justy, the Emergency Resiliency Manager for the Union of Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq, received a call from Chief Wilbert and was able to use her years of training as a paramedic and firefighter to know what needed to be done. She sent out an emergency alert to all the communities on the island, telling everyone to evacuate immediately. Seeing pictures of the fires, she was sure the entire island would be devastated. Calls were then made to the Department of Natural Resources and Renewables, whose staff sprang into action. The next call went out to Chief Norman and Wagmacook for their assistance. Wagmacook had recently formed a partnership with Breton Air to create Kitpoo Air. Kitpoo tracked down a pilot who was able to find a water bucket as theirs was being used for fires in Labrador. In less than an hour, the helicopter was dumping buckets of water on the island, while another helicopter was evacuating people from the far end of the island. Madam Speaker, so many people helped put out the flames that day, whether on the ground or in the air. Fortunately, because of the amazing work of everyone involved, the fire didn't get beyond these 5 cabins. For Kitpoo Air, it was an opportunity to use their equipment to save and protect a sister community. As Jennifer Justy said, their selfless actions will not soon be forgotten. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Clayton Park West.
Madam Speaker, today I rise to recognize the contribution of the Friends of Clayton Park Association. This association was started 18 years ago by PJ Capellan with the vision to help youth learn the value of volunteering and giving back to their community. I especially want to acknowledge the hard work of President Matthew Sim'an, Vice President AJ Capellan, and Treasurer Isa Hashim for their tireless effort in bringing our community together. This year, they not only organized the 18th annual free community barbecue at Veterans Corner with over 1,200 attendees, they also played a pivotal role in the success of our annual Heritage Day event at the Canada Game Centre. Thanks to their dedication and hard work, both events were a resounding success, providing free entertainment, fostering community spirit, and celebrating our rich cultural heritage. Madam Speaker, I ask the House to join me in recognizing the Friends of Clayton Park Association for their unwavering dedication. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Needham.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize a day in August called Spread the Love Day. Each year for over the past 10 years, youth from Phoenix Youth Community Center walk the streets downtown and in their communities spreading the love with sweet treats for folks with messages like, life is a gift, cherish it, and be awesome. The day originated when a group of youth in the Mulgrave Park community were tired of hearing the negative narrative of their community by the media, and they wanted people to see the good that comes out of Mulgrave Park. So they changed the narrative by creating Spread the Love Day. Donned with bright t-shirts and candy, sharing their love with each passerby with a lovely message for over 10 years. I would like all members of this House to join me in thanking Nekaya Hum, Nikela West, and the staff of PYCC for starting this day, and as well the participants of the program at Phoenix Youth and Community Center for continuing to spread the love year after year.
I recognize the honourable member for Richmond.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today I'd like to give a shout out to someone who's very special to me, my 9-year-old niece, Jade Richard. And Jade lives in a busy household with my sister Jessica, her mom and her dad Craig, and her 3 sisters, Layla, Emily, and Ellie. And Jade has a lot of skills, but one of her greatest is to connect with people. And so for the last little while, the last number of months, Jade has been visiting the residents of the St. Anne Centre, the nursing home in Arishat, close to her home. And she makes it her purpose to go multiple times a week to visit her friends. And often Jade will go alone, but sometimes she brings some of her friends with her. I know her cousin Brooklyn and her cousin Grace go with her. And just last week, Jade took my daughter Kate with her to visit the residents. And very proud of Jade, and this is something that really matters to her. And I would say Jade's going to be going places. She plans on being an actress in Hollywood, and I told her I will be her personal chiropractor when she does so. And but I just want to let Jade know Noki, Trevor, and her whole family are very proud of her, and to keep doing what she's doing and be the best person she is. So thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Clare.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to recognize Philippe Godin, a dedicated municipal councillor from the municipality of Clare, who will not be reoffering in the upcoming municipal elections. Philip, a Clare native, returned home after graduating from St. FX University in 2011 and obtained his chartered accountant designation. In 2020, successfully ran for District 3, representing Church Point, where he resided at the time. During his tenure on council, Philip served on several important committees, including the Planning Advisory Committee, the Audit Committee, and the Personnel Committee. He was also a member of the Board of Directors of La Villa Acadienne. Beyond his work in municipal governance, Philip is an active community leader, serving as president of the Atlantic Canada Barbecue Championship Society and vice president of the Canadian Barbecue Society. I ask that all members join me in expressing our gratitude to Philip Godin for his years of service to the municipality of Clare. Merci.
I recognize the honourable member of Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Peer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to recognize 4 people that are incredibly dear to me: Alec McIsaac and Deanna McIsaac, John O. Wilson, and his wife Sandra Wilson. Deanna and Sandra are the long-suffering wives of the 2 great NDPers in Cape Breton, Alec and John O. And instead of becoming widows to the Nova Scotia NDP, they decided to join with them, including Deanna allowing their honeymoon to take place during a big NDP convention. So, Madam Speaker, they do so much for our community. They do so much for the Nova Scotia NDP and for my EDA. They keep me steady and steadfast, and I want to shout out to all 4 of them for just being in our lives, being dear friends and dear champions. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member of Dartmouth East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Permission to make an introduction.
Please do.
Madam Speaker, in your gallery, we have my family. My beautiful wife, Christine Doyle, my sister, Nora Donnelly, who's been one of my biggest supporters since birth, and my daughter, Sophie Hallman. We have Emma Myatt, my stepdaughter, my stepson, Christopher Myatt, and we have my daughter, Ella Hallman. And I ask my colleagues to please offer a warm welcome to my family to the House of Assembly.
Welcome, and we hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the honourable member for Argyll.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise today to recognize Pauline d'Entremont of Lower West Pumlico on receiving the Anna Hamilton Award for her outstanding volunteer service to the Nova Scotia archival community. The Anna Hamilton Award was established by the Council of Nova Scotia Archives in 2004 to honor 1 volunteer each year who has served the Nova Scotia archival community with sincere dedication and in an exemplary fashion. Madam Speaker, Pauline has long demonstrated a keen interest in the Council of Nova Scotia Archives. She gives freely of her time to the archival community, spending countless hours volunteering at the Musée des Acadiens de Pumlico, and is a role model for others. Madam Speaker, I ask all members of the House to join me in thanking Pauline for her work as an archivist and for her outstanding volunteer contribution to the Musée des Acadiens de Pumlico and to our community. Félicitations, Pauline. Congratulations, Pauline. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Northside Westmount.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As we all know, municipal elections are happening in our province in October, and I just wanted to, in the area I represent, there are 4 municipal districts, and 3 of the 4 of those councillors have been elected by acclamation: Gordon MacDonald, Erlene McMullen, and Steve Gillespie. And I just wanted to wish them some congratulations and best of luck. Look forward to working with them. And in the 4th district, best of luck to all contenders. And remember, get out and vote and exercise your voice. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Hants West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise today to congratulate local barber Merle Jacklin on his well-deserved retirement after 51 years in business. Merle kept his customers looking sharp in his quaint little barber shop that has been a staple in our community since the 70s. His fingers could work his clippers like magic, but they also do a fine job on his Ovation guitar. Madam Speaker, after Merle announced his retirement this past May, social media was abuzz with stories about the incredible person that he is, making him a bit of a local legend. These stories range from him rescuing folks trapped on icy roads to making home visits when people were not well enough to visit his shop. Madam Speaker, not only did Merle show up for work, but he showed up for members of our community in more ways than one. I ask that all members join me in wishing Merle a happy and joyful retirement with his wife, Sharon. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Bedford South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today I wanted to wish a happy 90th birthday to a constituent of mine in Bedford South by the name of David Piers. David turned 90 on September 7th. He was originally from Truro and is a true gentleman, and I got a chance to talk to him last week, and I learned that he was and is one of the best tennis players that Nova Scotia has ever produced. He was known as the King of Clay. His prime years were in the 1950s and the 1960s when he was undefeated for 15 years in a row. His accomplishments include 58 Nova Scotia Open championships, 46 New Brunswick Open titles, and 21 championships in Prince Edward Island, which is hard to believe, but true. David is a real gentleman. He played until he was 84 years old, actively playing tennis. He was inducted into the Nova Scotia Sports Hall of Fame in 1988. He's a true gentleman and a great athlete, obviously, among his other accomplishments. So I just wanted to wish David a very happy 90th birthday. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member from Antigonish.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize Trendy's clothing store of Antigonish, which recently celebrated its 30th anniversary in business. Michelle McDonald opened her business on May 9th, 1994 on Main Street in Antigonish. What started off as a woman and children's clothing store has grown to offer men's clothing, accessories, and home decor. In 1998, a new store was built where her father's business used to operate, and later, Trendy's Clothing made one final move across the road to its current location. I can tell you from firsthand knowledge that shopping at Trendy's is a total shopping experience. You are always greeted warmly, and when you walk through the doors, Michelle and her team are there to help make sure that you look and feel your best, offering up styles that suit customers best. Trendy's celebrated this milestone with a sold-out brunch and fashion show this spring. This event showcased the store's fashions and were modeled by customers. I want to also mention that Michelle herself also celebrated a milestone birthday this year. Michelle, I hope you had a wonderful birthday. I ask all members of this House to congratulate Michelle and her staff on 30 years in business. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. And before I recognize the next person, I noticed that it was starting to get a little loud in here, so I would just ask that people keep to a quiet whisper. I recognize the honourable member for Cole Harbour Dartmouth.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to acknowledge the importance of the Canadian Council of Public Accounts Committee and the role they play in ensuring transparency and accountability in governments across Canada. From September 8th to 10th, I had the privilege of attending the annual conference in Quebec City as the Chair of Public Accounts Committee for Nova Scotia. This conference brought together public account members and legislative auditors from across Canada to discuss key topics such as government accountability, auditing practices, and sustainable development. The discussions were invaluable in strengthening the oversight of public finances and ensuring government operations remain transparent and efficient. I want to extend my sincere thanks to the organizers in Quebec City for putting together an enriching and insightful event. Their dedication to improving public accountability is deeply appreciated. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Order. Order. I don't know if anybody noticed the look that was given to me by the member of Cole Harbour Dartmouth, but over there it's been very, very, very loud, and it's disrespectful to the person that is speaking. When you're speaking, I hope others do the same. So please, I ask that everyone keep to a whisper to respect the person whom is speaking. I recognize the honorable member for Truro, Bible Hill, Millbrook, Salmon River.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm proud to rise today to congratulate the great folks at the Central Nova Scotia Sports and Entertainment Group on hosting the inaugural Nova Scotia Stampede at the Nova Scotia Provincial Exhibition Grounds in Bible Hill. This exciting event will be taking place Thursday, September 26th through Sunday, the 29th, and promises a thrilling blend of pro rodeo performances featuring bull riding, barrel racing, and more, sanctioned by the International Pro Rodeo Association. Attendees will also enjoy authentic Nova Scotian foods and vendors. The music lineup is stellar, featuring Canadian talents like Natalie McMaster, Don O'Leahy, George Canyon, and Tom Cochran. And with various options and experiences, the Nova Scotia Stampede is set to be an unforgettable celebration of East Coast culture. I invite everyone to come to Bible Hill, saddle up, and join in on the fun. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Annapolis.
This year, the Paradise Community Hall has nominated Debbie Gillis for the Annapolis County Volunteer Recognition Ceremony. Debbie has given back to the community of Paradise for 3 decades, and this includes mowing the grounds of the community hall, watering the hanging baskets of petunias, being a member of the Paradise Historical Society, and serving as president of the Paradise Community Hall. She has generously given her time and efforts as a 4-H leader, as a pony camp instructor, as a hockey volunteer, and she frequently took on volunteer roles at the schools where she taught family studies. Madam Speaker, I invite all members of the House of Assembly to join me in congratulating Debbie Gillis on being celebrated this year at the Annapolis County Volunteer Recognition Ceremony, and I thank her for all she does for our community to make it a better place to work, live, and play. Thank you very much.
I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today I'm delighted to acknowledge the outstanding work of the Amherst Downtown Business Association. Their dedication and efforts have significantly contributed to the vibrancy and the success of the town of Amherst. One of the highlights of their recent initiatives has been the success of family nights, organized by the Downtown Amherst Business Association, held on Thursday nights throughout the summer. These events have brought together residents of all ages, creating memorable experiences and fostering a strong sense of community. The family nights have not only supported local businesses, but also provided a valuable opportunity for families to connect and enjoy our downtown area. I also like to recognize Jeff Bacon, who is the Business Development Officer with the Town of Amherst, and all of the staff of the Town of Amherst that helped with the Downtown Business Association in pulling off these successful family nights. Madam Speaker, I want to extend my sincere congratulations to all involved. Very proud of their family nights this summer in downtown Amherst. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to recognize Linda Slomwhite of Terrence Bay. Linda is serving as the chair of the Terrence Bay Community Hall Association and received the 2024 Halifax Volunteer Award this past spring. The award signified a well-deserved acknowledgement of Linda's hard work and community spirit. Linda is recognized within the community as a definition of a go-getter and someone who is able to deal with any situation that comes her way. Trust me, she has my office on speed dial. Linda has spent countless hours securing funding, recruiting volunteers, managing renovation projects, and hosting community events. She devotes hours to creating and nurturing a lively, dynamic place where people feel welcome, respected, and a vital part of the community. Linda has also been instrumental in organizing events to raise donations for the Prospect Food Share program that has sustained countless families in our community. I'd like the members of the House of Assembly to join me in thanking Linda Slomwhite for her dedication, commitment, and positive impact at Terrence Bay and surrounding communities. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Colchester North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm very happy today to tell you about a wonderful community-minded person. Beth McMichaels is a retired high school teacher who was the IB coordinator teacher and served as the head of the department and is a past member of the Board of Regents at Mount Allison University. Madam Speaker, after Beth retired, she recognized an opportunity for seniors to get more involved in her community. So she took on the role of organizing activities for seniors and other community members. Beth decided to center her efforts around the Divert Legion using the facility for activities. Beth has been involved in teaching computer skills to seniors, which has aided citizens to be able to fill out applications online, including Seniors Care Grant and the heat rebate. She has also set up a cyber cafe at the Legion and has initiated or participated in cleanup days and bottle drives. Beth is always willing to share a helping hand to others in need. She is a wealth of knowledge which she willingly shares with others. Madam Speaker, Beth has rejuvenated the seniors population in Nova Scotia. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Fairview Clayton Park.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize two young entrepreneurs from Fairview Clayton Park, Chase Winchester and Hayden Langell, who started their own lemonade business, Citrus Shack, this past summer. These two friends met in grade primary in their French immersion classroom at Burton Ettinger and have been great friends for the last 7 years. Their lemonade venture took them from their neighborhood stand to Cleveland Beach, where they were warmly welcomed by beachgoers and even received a visit from the local radio station, Summer Cruiser. Through their hard work, Chase and Hayden brought refreshing lemonade and smiles to our community, showing entrepreneurial spirit well beyond their years. Their lemonade season may have come to an end, but the friendships and experiences they've gained are sure to continue growing as they start their 8th year at Fairview Junior High. Their grade 8 year. They haven't been there for 8 years. Their 8th grade at Fairview Junior High. Madam Speaker, let us celebrate these young entrepreneurs for their initiative and success. Chase and Hayden have shown us the power of friendship and determination, and we look forward to see what they're going to accomplish next.
I recognize the honourable member of Inverness.
Very quick introduction here. We have the Warden of Inverness County, Bonnie McIsaac, with us, and we have the CAO, Keith McDonald, with us in the gallery.
Welcome and thank you for your service. I recognize the honourable member from Pictou West.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to acknowledge a hard-working, humble man who has beautified the town of Pictou over the past year. Andrew Marshall owns and operates North Shore Ballast on Browns Point Road in Pictou, and through this, he repurposes broken and old lobster traps at his shop. The rope is reused, and the trap wire is repurposed as rebar. Andrew has recently built a fence along a 250-yard section of the road near the entrance to the town of Pictou. The repurposed lobster trap frames are pieced together in a truly mesmerizing fashion, which is not only aesthetically pleasing, but symbolizes how strong and important the fishery has been to the community. Madam Speaker, it's an honor here to thank Andrew Marshall for his commitment.
The time allotted for statements by member has expired. Orders of the day, oral questions put by members to ministers. I recognize the honourable leader of the official opposition.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, every single week we are seeing the harms of the Premier's efforts to double the population without a plan. We are seeing that in exponential growth in homelessness, in exponential growth in costs for housing and rents, in overrun hospitals and overcrowded schools. We're told this is to ensure we have healthcare workers. We know that less than 3% of the folks coming are for health. We're told it's for skilled trades. We know the numbers that the Premier set targets for are twice as much as the Department of Labor and Immigration is saying we need. We have to ask ourselves, why is the government going beyond the targeted numbers that their own Department of Immigration is saying is sustainable and needed in the province?
I recognize the Deputy Premier.
Speaker, I would pose a question back to the Leader of the Official Opposition. How would he see the government preventing people from coming to the province? Many of whom, after the pandemic, came from Southern Ontario. They're Canadians, Madam Speaker. Are we to stand at the border of the province and say, no, you're not allowed in?
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition with his first supplementary.
Madam Speaker, the Minister knows the Department, the government have control over who's being nominated. If the Minister would look at the documents in the Labour and Immigration Department, he would see that his provincial nominations, according to the department, far exceed the target that's in the business plan. They far exceed the numbers that the department says are sustainable. We have to ask ourselves why. I think the member for Kings West gave us the answer. You need to get taxes from somewhere, he said. And there's an option, the best option is having more people pay taxes. Is this government over-exceeding their population growth targets beyond our capacity, beyond our housing, simply to get more revenue in their coffers?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the important question. It gives me an opportunity to be able to reiterate that our department has a strategic plan to population growth. And as the Minister of Finance had also indicated, yes, in 2021, we grew as a province to hit that 1 million mark. And Madam Speaker, that was significant. That was a turning point for our province to see growth and opportunity in the right way. So we know that before the pandemic and after the pandemic, we saw a surge of interprovincial migration. That was something that wasn't necessarily planned for there, Madam Speaker, but we also know that supporting individuals to attach to housing, to attach to jobs is all, again, the focus of our department. So we will continue to do that work, not only for folks who are here, but also immigrants.
Order. I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Madam Speaker, it's this Premier that said he had a target to double the population. It's this Premier that's hitting that target of over 28,000 people a year. It's this Premier and government that is exceeding the targets that the own Department of Labour and Skills and Advanced Education, that Minister's Department, said we can accommodate. We are seeing the impacts of that. On this side of the House, we see newcomers to this province as people, not revenue sources. Another example of that is last night, there's another example of this government not looking at these people as people. What did the Premier say last night? We want everybody but asylum seekers, assuming that asylum seekers fleeing persecution and war don't have the skills to support our economy here. My question to the government is, why can't they defend their own plans to double the population and attack asylum seekers at the same time?
Oh, okay. Order. I asked, when I say order, that means we're done. So I ask that there's no screaming out afterwards. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member for the important question. So as a province, Nova Scotia, we have a humanitarian responsibility to be able to support those who are fleeing violence. And in Nova Scotia, we have a strong history of supporting refugees, Madam Speaker. So working hand in hand with the federal government, we know that through that process of sponsorship, community organizations step up. Madam Speaker, I can speak to my own experience when I think of a Syrian family, Raid in Digby, who has stolen my heart from the day that I met them in 2015 when I was the YMCA settlement worker. And we know that families like this are all across the province because it takes a whole community and a whole government approach to support newcomers settle and stay and thrive.
I recognize the Honourable Leader for the NDP.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Nearly 90% of our coast is privately owned, but we are coastal people and we all have an interest in its protection and conservation. A recent study between researchers at Dalhousie, St. Mary's and McGill looked at the impact of development on the Bay of Fundy and found that, quote, if coastal management was centered on individual property owners and infrastructure like seawalls, the long-term impacts could include the loss of biodiversity and destruction of coastal neighborhoods from more intense storms. My question to the Premier is, why is he willing to leave our ecosystem and our coastal neighborhoods at risk?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, our Coastal Action Plan is a fundamental overall component to us adapting and mitigating the realities of climate change. We know through the risk assessment that more intense storms are going to become more and more problematic. That is why we have the Environmental Goals and Climate Change Reduction Act. That's why we have the Nova Scotia Climate Plan. That's why we have the risk assessment, and that's why we now have the Coastal Action Plan. All of this working together will help support municipalities. Municipalities are responsible for zoning. As a provincial government, we are there to help support our municipalities as they work with their key stakeholders to ensure residents do not build in unsafe areas. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable leader for the NDP with her first supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We also have and have passed in this House a Coastal Protection Act. A strategy is not an act. Last winter, municipalities expressed deep frustration and confusion with this government's abandonment of the Coastal Protection Act. And this sentiment remains. As Councillor Larry Turner of the municipality of Pictou County recently explained, there's species at risk. There's nature that is going to be changed by coastal erosion. There's a whole dynamic that's happening other than human activity. The scale and complexity of the issues facing our coastlines require province-wide act and regulations set by this government. Why is this government foisting what should be provincial responsibility for coastline onto municipalities?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Madam Speaker, we have a shared responsibility to ensure the protection of our coastline. We have 49 municipal units that encompass 13,000 diverse kilometres of coastline. They know their communities best. Our role as a provincial government is to be there, to empower, to support. I'm pleased that we now have a coastal coordinator in place with the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities to work with our municipalities to ensure that they develop the bylaws to ensure residents do not build in unsafe areas. This is a very granular issue. In some areas, we may have to retreat from the coastline. In other areas, other solutions may be required, and that is why we will work with our municipalities to ensure our residents are protected. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the leader of the NDP with her final question.
This act was designed to empower and support, and the consultation on the regulations reflected that granularity. In April, following this government's decision to abandon the act, the results of the consultation with property owners from fall of last year was finally released. And these results showed a majority of respondents were in favor of rules to regulate development on the coastline and believed that these rules should come from this government. On the subject of this consultation, the Premier told us we listened to Nova Scotians very intently. And so my question is, which Nova Scotians did the Premier listen to? If not the respondents to this or other rounds of consultations, not the municipalities, not the hundreds of emails to the department, then who?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I've been consistent over the past 6 months. There is a diversity of opinion on this, and we've arrived at a action plan that is balanced and comprehensive, that supports informed decision-making, that supports municipal leadership, and along with deploying resources immediately. And I want to take this opportunity to correct the record. This morning, when the NDP press release went out, it indicated the government refuses to release the results of its most recent public consultation. That is categorically false, Madam Speaker. On April 19th, we released the results of that report. We posted it on our website, and Madam Speaker, I will table that report, which was released April 19th, along with it. The information is still available on our website today.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think it's very clear that this government's population growth targets, which are double what the Department of Immigration provincially says we can handle, is about the revenue. It isn't about the people. If it was about ensuring that people could be looked after when they got here, we would ensure we had a housing plan that's going to keep up with population growth. Housing per capita is in free fall. Doctors per capita is in free fall in this province. Our schools are overcrowded. This Premier brags about housing starts, 6,000 this year. That's good. But we are going to hit his target to double the population this year. We need 13,500 new homes to do that. Why is this government targeting more people to bring into our province when we have not enough houses to look after people?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member again for the important question. So, Madam Speaker, our department, we've said all along since the day that we've taken office that people are part of our plan, and we completely agree. People are part of the solution. So we can grow our population and build the housing and the infrastructure that's needed, Madam Speaker. And when I say that our population growth strategy is strategic, just over the course since 2021 till now, we have increased immigration numbers in healthcare and construction workers by more than, or almost 90%, Madam Speaker. So making sure that, again, we've got targeted efforts to make sure that we're processing candidates that we need, but we also know that we're going to continue to grow in other ways through interprovincial migration and retention.
Good job.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Madam Speaker, less than 3% of folks that have been brought in have been for our healthcare system. The other 97% need more healthcare. If this Premier actually cared and prioritized the people, he wouldn't be taking cheap shots at refugees and asylum seekers. He'd be defending his own plan for growth. And the fact that the Premier has assumed that because people are fleeing war and persecution, that they don't have the skills to be applied here in Nova Scotia, I think is shameful. And I'll remind the Premier, we have a refugee in this chamber. We have descendants of refugees in this chamber. And I wonder if he's met Tara Kadad up in Antigonish, who's employing people. My question to the Premier is, why can't refugees contribute to our economy as well?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member again for the important question. So, Madam Speaker, Nova Scotia has a very rich and important history of supporting refugees, immigrants, and newcomers of all kinds. And, Madam Speaker, that's at the heart of what we do at the Department of Labour, Skills and Immigration. It is such an important topic when we're supporting people, Madam Speaker. When an individual chooses to come to our province, they deserve the supports, the wraparound supports, everything that they need to be able to thrive. But I think of course, it's been clear, Madam Speaker, that we know that not everybody who comes to Nova Scotia came by their own choice. So when someone is fleeing unimaginable circumstances, we're going to continue to open up our hearts and open our homes and everything we can to support them in the best way possible.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Northside Westmount.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, mining is important to the culture, the history, and who we are as a people, not only in Cape Breton, but also in Nova Scotia. From Glace Bay to Spring Hill, mining was a big part of all of our communities. And this is a personal thing for me, as my family was involved in mining. My grandfather, Fred Tilley, was actually the Miners Museum underground manager when it was built. So this is a really important issue to me, and I would like to ask the government if at some point we're going to admit the Miners Museum into the Nova Scotia Museum plan.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Community, Culture, Tourism and Heritage.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and we certainly know it well in the constituency of Inverness, with mines in Inverness and Port Hood and Mabo coal mines. My own grandfather was a miner as well, and in fact my father was born in Ontario because my grandfather was a miner and he was mining there. So, Madam Speaker, I think this is an important question, and I think what they want at the Miners Museum is to be able to have the kind of revenues that they can lower ticket prices. I think that's what their real ask has been. That's what I've been hearing through the media. I know my colleague, the member for Glace Bay, is actually going to be meeting with the board on Monday, and I'm looking forward to hearing about how that conversation goes.
I recognize the Honourable Member of Northside Westmount.
Well, that's great that we're meeting with the museum, because I think we'll get discussion going and improve things. But I just want to bring to your attention that my understanding is that there's a petition on the go, and it will be presented by the member from Glace Bay next week. So will that change the direction? Will that move the government forward to bring this solution to the Miners Museum? Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Minister for Communities, Culture, Tourism and Heritage.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank the member for the question. As I say, I'm looking forward to hearing the member from Glace Bay, and he's going to be having an opportunity to sit down with them. I know this summer I actually intended to take my own family to the museum, and I just couldn't pull it off. But I would like to get there because I know it offers a great experience. I want to say that we want to work with the board there. I also want to acknowledge that of well over 90 museum sites in the province, the Miners Museum in Glace Bay ranks in the early 20s in terms of funding. So if you look at community museums and provincial museums, they're actually ranking quite high on the list right now. We have to be cognizant of all museums in the province, but I want to work with the Miners Museum.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Hammonds Plains, Lucasville.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A few weeks back, the community of Upper Hammonds Plains was made aware of an issue with respect to access to the water that's in their community. Specifically, in the past, they had to take the city and Halifax Water to court to get access to that water from the source that's in their backyard. They were having issues with water pressure. They met with Halifax Water and came to find out that the pipes are too small and they can't even use the hydrants for fire suppression in that community. Pretty shocking. Madam Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Municipal Affairs. Is a project to improve a situation like this possible through the Critical Infrastructure Program?
I recognize the Honourable Minister for Natural Resources.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank the member opposite. In my previous life as a fire chief, I can say that hydrant systems are the responsibility of the municipality. Absolutely, there's projects that are out there through different levels of government, including provincial, that can be applied for. I'd encourage the local municipal council. I know elections are on right now, but certainly this is a conversation that can be entertained by different levels of government. But it does lie on the responsibility for the municipality to make the application.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Hammonds Plains, Lucasville.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the response from the acting minister. I know that Halifax Water is currently undertaking some reviews to look at the situation. I know that in the coming weeks they will reach back out to the community to discuss next steps. So I just wanted to clarify whether this is something that, if necessary, funding could be leveraged through the provincial government to support getting this problem fixed. So I will pass that information along to the community about applying, and I appreciate the minister's response. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you very much. Thank the member for the comment on that. I will advise the minister upon his return about the conversation. Can't stress enough, it should, just in case there might be miscommunication there, can't be the community group. It certainly has to come from the municipality applications. But of course, I know there's been different projects since my time in the legislature over the last 6 years. That there's been improvements on water systems, sewer systems, roadways, hydrant systems would be included on that. So look forward to sharing with the minister that conversation can be had in the future.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax Needham.
Madam Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Environment and Climate Change. The recommendations from the Environmental Racism Panel were due to the province at the end of 2023. 9 months later, not only do Nova Scotians have no idea of this government's progress, we don't even know what the recommendations are. My question is, why has there been no update from the minister on the panel's recommendations?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank the member for the question. This is an issue of great importance to Nova Scotians. And I want to take this opportunity and thank all the members of the panel that worked on this. Government has a draft report of this, and this report encompasses environment and climate change, the Office of Equity and Anti-Racism, African Nova Scotia Affairs, and LNU affairs. And I want to assure the honourable member the work is ongoing internally within the government for a final draft report. And once we have an update, we'll be providing that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Needham.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And it's glad to hear that there's a draft report. It would be nice to have some eyes on that so that we can make some recommendations as well. Lack of clean water, a lack of proper sewage, somebody having some kind of municipal dump next door to your community, or there's a factory. This is how panel member Augie Jones has described the experiences of many Indigenous and African Nova Scotian communities. We have waited the better part of a year now for this report. These communities deserve to know what the panel found and what this province is doing in response. How much longer do we have to wait? Will the minister commit to tabling this report in this House within the next week?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Jones, Mr. Augie Jones, for chairing that, along with the co-chair Lisa Young and all the panelists for the work that they've done. Absolutely, I mean, this is a province that has a history of environmental racism. That is why this government accepted that amendment in the Environmental Goals and Climate Change Reduction Act. And I can assure the member that the work is ongoing on this final report between Environment and Climate Change, the Office of Equity and Anti-Racism, LNU Affairs, and African Nova Scotia Affairs. When that work is complete, we'll have an update to Nova Scotians. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Sydney, Member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This conversation came up in the last session of the House, and it's something that's important. It's something that's talked about at home, and that's rail, what the future of rail is for the island. And we did hear some preliminary conversations about the line that connects Sydney to St. Peter's potentially in jeopardy of being dismantled. And we also heard about light rail that CBU is actually looking at, which I would encourage maybe up here too as well. So I guess my question to the Minister of Economic Development, can I get an update on the conversations with the owner of the rail to date?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Economic Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank the member opposite for the question. And connectivity, whether it is digital connectivity or whether it is the physical connectivity of our transportation system, are key factors toward the economic success of Nova Scotia. I inquired earlier this week whether I could get a little info on particularly the progress of the light rail study. I am still anticipating receiving news of that study later this fall, so I too am waiting on that. And we continue to monitor the overall situation.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Sydney, Member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And it's something that we are monitoring as well. And we know that CBU is doing the study on light rail, and we know that there are other community groups that are looking at trail system for a piece of the rail that is along the harbour. But ultimately, my question is about that connectivity from Sydney beyond. And during our time in government, when the current government was in opposition, they were very aggressive at the time towards the government when it came to protecting that critical piece of infrastructure, because businesses wanted us to protect it. It was in a community that is now growing. It matters more than ever. But my question to the minister is: does she feel that it's the end of the line for that piece of rail?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Economic Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you for the question. There is a very clearly delineated process set by the federal government for the abandonment of a rail line when the owners of a line choose to do so. That process, there's been no notifications to date of that. The owner of the line has made clear that it will depend on whether there is a business case and the government of Nova Scotia agrees that that is a thoughtful and correct way to proceed. If there becomes a business case, we would look to developments, but it rests in the hands of the owners.
I recognize the honourable member for Annapolis.
Madam Speaker, over the last number of months, there seems to be a troubling increase in violent incidents in Annapolis and surrounding areas. In Kings West, we have a missing person case. In Digby, Annapolis, we've had a recent homicide. In Annapolis, we've had several serious crimes throughout the county. Annapolis residents are frightened. They've raised serious issues about concerns on their safety and the safety of the public in general. Despite the vital role that municipalities play in managing police services, it seems crystal clear that more supports are needed. My question to the Minister of Justice: what specific steps is the provincial government taking to enhance safety in Annapolis and throughout rural Nova Scotia?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. And certainly the expectation of all Nova Scotians is to be safe in their communities, and I've had a number of conversations with various MLAs from across the province, especially down in that particular area. The violent crimes that are occurring in those communities have increased, and I know that our Department of Justice, both with the municipal policing units as well as the RCMP, are in constant communication. There are some actions that I'm not at liberty to share, but certainly I'll reference some of the other actions in my supplementary. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Annapolis.
I want to thank the Minister for that response. Look forward to hearing more specifics. It's evident that the current approach isn't enough. A recent review by H Division of the RCMP highlighted that more officers are needed throughout Annapolis and beyond. I know that in Annapolis there are several vacant positions with the RCMP. It makes this problem far worse than it should be. I'm wondering how the Minister plans to ensure that provincial resources are effectively allocated to municipalities, and what specific measures are being implemented to ensure that our police departments have the support they need. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. So policing is a responsibility for the province that we take very seriously, and working with the RCMP, especially in terms of their staffing issues, is something that we have regular meetings with every week. And there is progress in terms of hiring across the province. As we did down in the Clare-Metagan area, we doubled the policing in that area. As well, going from 7 to 14 police officers down in that area. That's just one of the responses that's ongoing. And of course, each of the municipalities reviews their own policing levels. But one of the other things that we do is we continue to support the Additional Officers Program that provides funding to police that directly responds to the local issues.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Cole Harbour-Dartmouth.
Madam Speaker, I was contacted by a constituent who shared her troubling experience seeking medical care for her 84-year-old husband in a walk-in clinic in Dartmouth. With a population of approximately 100,000 people and growing, they found there was only one clinic open, and after hours of waiting, many patients were turned away due to the limited availability of doctors. This is not acceptable, especially for our seniors who need timely and accessible care. My question to the Minister of Health is, how can this government justify the severe lack of health care resources in Dartmouth, with one walk-in clinic forcing seniors to wait for hours, often with no guarantee of being seen?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member opposite for the question. So certainly across the province we are building health homes, collaborative care centres, and looking at how we can support individuals in creating more access on evenings and weekends. For the most part, physicians are private individuals. They have private businesses. The majority of them are incorporated, and as such set their own hours of work, and the model of care. So we continue to work through the recent contract to incent physicians for attachment. We incent them for having hours outside regular business hours. We're looking at improving the quality of the services they're able to provide through team-based care. So we are working across the province to look at how we expand services, but there is sometimes little that we can do about the model if people are incorporated.
I recognize the honourable member for Cole Harbour Dartmouth.
Madam Speaker, the situation is not isolated. Residents across Dartmouth are struggling to access basic medical care due to the shortage of doctors and clinic hours. For an entire population to rely on one single clinic with unpredictable availability is putting undue stress on both patients and healthcare providers. Seniors especially cannot endure these conditions. What is the minister's plan to immediately address the healthcare needs in the Dartmouth area to ensure residents without doctors, particularly seniors, have access to the in-person care they need without sitting on a floor and being turned away?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So certainly there are a number of options that are available. In a walk-in clinic environment, that would tell me that this is likely episodic care that the individual requires, and as a result, there are a number of options. So there certainly is virtual care that are available to folks, both whether or not you're on the Need a Family Practice Registry or not. In the event that you need to see someone in person, you can be referred quickly. Additionally, we have very highly trained pharmacists across this province who can offer primary care through pharmacy walk-in clinics and through appointments. So there are a number of options that are available to folks. If individuals are not using the app, which we know the majority are between 50 and 80, certainly 811 is also an opportunity to navigate the system.
I recognize the honourable member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Thank you. My question is for the Minister of Community Services. In the first annual progress report on the remedy for the finding of systematic discrimination against Nova Scotians with disabilities, this government claimed that they were making significant progress. The independent monitoring report disagreed. While this government claimed that 53 items were in exact compliance, the independent monitoring report found only 17 items were. Can the minister explain why this government vastly overstated their progress on the remedy?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We're meeting every day with the proponents. We're working through the remedy. In fact, DSP services, we've reduced the wait list by 13%. This is not 100-meter dash. This is a marathon. We have 5 years to get this done. We're moving forward. In fact, if the member had read the entire report, there was a lot of complimentary things in that report about what government is doing. There's more to do. There's more things to improve on, and that's why we're meeting with our service providers right across this province each and every day.
I recognize the Honourable Member of Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Madam Speaker, I did read the report. That's how I know it was vastly overstated of their accomplishments. The independent monitor's report made 14 recommendations for this government to move toward a fulfillment of the obligations to Nova Scotians with disabilities. These recommendations range from enhancing transparency and consistency in reporting to improving collaboration with the Disability Rights Coalition. Given that this government has had the experts' report for over a month, will the minister stand and commit to implementing all 14 recommendations?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We're committed to not just the 14 recommendations, but the entire report. That's what we're doing. And as for transparency, we are meeting with our service providers. We're talking to individuals that are impacted. We have staff on the ground working with people that are impacted, not just the people that are impacted, but their families, to make sure that they have the choice when it comes to remedy, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, what I would say to that member, we now have a website up that's available to everyone in the public that shows our progress. There's lots to do over the 5-year process, and we're on our way.
I recognize the honourable member from Clare.
Madam Speaker, the United Fisheries Conservation Alliance is calling on the Provincial Department of Environment to work with its partners to close the Sonyville Wharf due to an oil spill in the harbour. This poses a major threat to the environment and the safety of our seafood. The Alliance is calling for the immediate closure of the wharf to prevent further damage and contamination. My question to the Minister, will the Minister act now to shut down the Sonyville Wharf to ensure that a full environmental cleanup begins immediately?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And as the Honourable Member knows, this is an issue I follow very, very closely, given my personal connections to that region of Nova Scotia, which I consider my second home. I'm certainly aware of the Alliance's recommendation. In point of fact, on the regulatory side, it's DFO and the Inspection Food Agency of Canada that's regulating this. My Inspection and Compliance Division has been in contact with those agencies, and I want to assure the honourable member, while we don't have a specific regulatory role, my ICE division, Inspection, Compliance and Enforcement, has been in contact with those agencies, and we continue to monitor the situation, just given the obviously just importance of the fishery in that part of Nova Scotia. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member from Clare.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank the Minister for that response. The oil spill not only threatens St. Mary's Bay, but also jeopardizes the reputation of Nova Scotia's seafood exports. We cannot allow contaminated lobster to be sold or consumed. Do UFCA have footage of lobster being floated at the wharf where an oil spill is present? Will the Minister commit today to working with his federal counterparts to close the wharf and protect both our fisheries and the livelihood of those who depend on them?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Aquaculture.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you to the member opposite for raising this concern here in the House. We share the concern. We know that lobster is our largest export. I don't know if anyone has heard me say it before here in this House, but $1.3 billion worth of lobster is exported from this province every day. And the people that I talk to worldwide compliment the quality of the product that we produce. So certainly when there's concerns of contamination, we take that very, very seriously. The full responsibility to verify that falls on the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, and our compliance officers have been in contact with them to ensure that they're doing what they're supposed to. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. HRM is asking the province to adopt the 2020 National Building Code and National Energy Code to give Halifax just a chance of achieving its goal of net zero by 2030. These code changes would lower emissions, lower long-term energy costs, and it's estimated that by making these changes, the province would create 15,000 jobs a year. Will the Minister of Environment and Climate Change ensure that his government updates the provincial building code to align it with national standards that were created 4 years ago?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank the member for the question. That is a significant lift. That National Building Code, I believe, is the first modernization in 35 years. The Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing engaged in consultation in the summer of last year. And at this juncture, I can tell you the responsibility of adopting the National Building Code rests with the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and more time is needed to effectively plan and adapt to the new code required. The department is committed to adopting the code, but they want to ensure that the timing is right for that. And I want to take this opportunity and also commend HRM and all our municipal units. So many great climate initiatives taking place among our municipalities. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, it is a responsibility of the Department of Municipal Affairs, but it is a commitment from the Minister's own climate plan released 2 years ago. The same plan that committed to a Coastal Protection Act, which was first delayed and then ultimately scrapped. The changes are good for the environment and affordability, saving Nova Scotia money on their power bills, but yet we have a delay. is this minister still committed to the changes of the building codes, and if so, when?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, we have in Nova Scotia the first fully funded climate change plan since 2009. We have 68 goals in that plan that are helping us reduce greenhouse gas emissions, that are helping us transform how we produce and use energy, that are helping us achieve our 20% land and water conservation target. We have 28 goals legislated, and Madam Speaker, I'll remind this House, we have been ranked 3rd in Canada after British Columbia and Quebec in terms of our climate change response. And Madam Speaker, I will provide for the House our annual update to Nova Scotians, which is our 3rd annual update, and I'll table that, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yesterday here in the House, I reminded everyone that one of the first things the Premier did when he came into his role was fire the CEO medical doctor running our healthcare system, as well as the board of directors that provided proper governance oversight. So every time I see decisions made in our healthcare system that are leading to poor health outcomes, I always wonder if there's a correlation that a lawyer is running our healthcare system and not a medical doctor or professionals. And I'll give an example. Before the pandemic, or when the pandemic happened, rapid testing for Strep A was removed from our emergency departments and from doctors' offices and have not been replaced, leading possibly to unnecessary deaths. Can the minister explain why rapid testing for Strep has not been replaced in our ERs?
Order. I recognize the Honourable Minister for Health and Wellness.
I find that quite insulting that the member would think that anybody that is running the healthcare system would withhold any type of testing or any type of treatment from Nova Scotians. I find that quite insulting and quite dangerous, in fact. We have invested an incredible amount of money. Our healthcare system has leading experts in the world in our healthcare system. We adhere as healthcare professionals to standards of practice and code of ethics. And as a former nurse, registered nurse, I think that individual should understand that very clearly.
That's right. I recognize the Honourable Member of Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So the fact is, it is irresponsible for this government not to have rapid strep testing in our emergency departments. In fact, I'll table articles where rapid strep is on the rise here in Nova Scotia. We know that. The incidence of rapid strep has killed more people this year than in the previous year. The numbers are more than double. So if rapid strep is on the rise, why would you not put back rapid tests where you could have the results in 45 minutes? Now, doctors do not get the results until 72 hours. And then sometimes people don't have a family doctor and the person goes undiagnosed. People are dying in this province, possibly unnecessarily. So I think it's a valid question to ask, does a lawyer have the ability to lead our healthcare system?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
I've worked with a number of
healthcare... Order. I ask that the member from Cumberland North wait for the response to her question. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And as the member would know, that yes, testing is an important part of a clinical treatment plan, but there are other things that physicians and nurse practitioners and our healthcare workers use in order to diagnose and treat patients. That is one single data point. And yes, a rapid strep test can provide information, but we know that there are also lab-based care. There is a physical assessment by the physician. There is nothing being held back in this province by our clinicians. We give them every opportunity to provide care. And again, I think it is incredibly insulting for a former registered nurse to insinuate that our healthcare workers are influenced by anything other than their standard.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Madam Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. While many Nova Scotians are struggling to find a place they can afford, there are far too many examples of unrestricted land banking. Vacant lots sitting undeveloped instead of becoming desperately needed affordable housing. Will this government do the logical thing and commit to a vacant land tax to put more homes within reach for Nova Scotians?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Madam Speaker, as the Minister of Community Services, what I would say to that member is, we don't want the cost of living to go up more and more and more. We don't want new taxes. The last time the NDP were in government, they raised taxes, Madam Speaker. Now they're in opposition saying, if we get back in power, we're going to raise taxes again. Madam Speaker, Nova Scotians are faced with affordability crisis. We're working on it. We've raised DSP payments by 300%. We've indexed income assistance. There's lots of things we've done that they voted against, but I guess we now know where their mindset is.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Madam Speaker, we know this government doesn't want to raise taxes on their developer friends. Earlier this year, HRM Council explicitly requested that the province provide them with the legislative authority to tax vacant land. I'll table that. Such a tax could not only increase development, but also raise funds for affordable housing projects. Why is this government sitting on an idea that would spur development and create more funding for more affordable housing?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Community Services.
I'll tell the Honourable Member, I don't have developer friends. I barely have friends, so that you can shoot that one down. That's the truth. That's the truth. But Madam Speaker, it's true. Madam Speaker, there's this myth that from the opposition that housing's not happening. Let me read you this. More new homes being built in Nova Scotia this year than any first quarter since the 1940s. CBC article. When we compare the new construction that's happening in Nova Scotia to the rest of the country, we are way ahead, said Kevin Nadar, senior analyst with the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation Market Insight Team. And I think the HST rebate, not tax increase, is quite a factor, he said, because the province, this kind of match, what the federal government is doing, but we haven't necessarily seen that in other provinces.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Clayton Park West.
Madam Speaker, in March of this year, 70 women joined us here in the legislature to request changes to breast cancer screening. The minister spoke with the woman and promised to do her best to look into it. I requested a meeting with the minister in April to work collaboratively with some of outside experts. I received a response from the minister, which I will table, basically saying Minister and Dr. Sean Iles would not meet with us. Madam Speaker, my question to the minister today, is she willing to commit to a meeting with myself, Dr. Sean Iles, Dr. Paula Gordon, and Dens Press Canada, who have much needed information and they've moved forward, but our province is stuck in the past on this.
I recognize the Honourable Minister just to say order. The time has elapsed. Order, please. The time allotted for oral questioning put by members to the ministers has expired. I recognize the Honourable Member from Cumberland North.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to rise on a point of order. During question period, twice, Minister of Health questioned my code of ethics. That is questioning my integrity, Madam Speaker. I should be able to stand in this House and ask a question, a medical question, for the people and on behalf of the people of this province without having my character defamed. I'll also add to that I am still a registered nurse, and I am proud to be, and I am proud to say that I have a strong code of ethics, and I believe it is ethical to ask the question why rapid testing is not available so that people can be diagnosed in 45 minutes.
Order. Thank you for raising your point of order, and that is what you do, but I do not find that this is a point of order. I do not feel that anything has been breached, and I thank you. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would you please call government bills for third reading?
Government bills for third reading. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you. Would you please call Bill number 459, Health Professional Associations Continuation Act?
Bill 459, Health Professionals Association Communications, Continuations Act. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do ask that Bill 459 be read for a third time. As we've talked about briefly in this House before, this really is a housekeeping bill supporting our licensed providers in having accompanying associations as we move towards the Nova Scotia Health Professional Regulations Act. As you can, we've worked very closely with the associations involved, and I feel that this is really simply a housekeeping item and will help us modernize and transform our healthcare system. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Member, Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy to rise and briefly speak to Bill 459, the Health Professional Associations Act. As we continue to understand, this is a simple administrative bill that on its own is uncontroversial. Nothing has changed since the last time we spoke to this bill. We did not hear from anyone from law amendments, and no new revelations have emerged about this piece of legislation. Our caucus is happy to support these changes that improve public safety, enhance oversight, and standardize approvals and licensing of dental and vision providers, and have the support of the professional bodies in question. Yet, we would be much more energized if we were able to stand up and speak to the efforts to make dental and vision care more affordable for Nova Scotians. With the rising costs of goods like housing and groceries, we know that too many Nova Scotians are struggling to pay for necessary appointments and prescriptions. Our province provides only a minimum coverage of these services. For a government supposedly fixing the healthcare system faster, we would expect bolder, more innovative actions in these two areas that are both medically necessary and hitting the pocketbooks of Nova Scotians hard, Mr. Speaker. But all we have in front of us is an administrative piece of legislation. As our party gives our support to this bill, we encourage this government to do better in ensuring that Nova Scotians have access to vision and dental care that they can afford. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Member, Bedford Basin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I did speak briefly to this bill yesterday, and I'm pretty much going to say the same thing all over again. This is good that we have a standardized process for associations to continue their work. I did note at the time the importance that both dental and vision care have to Nova Scotians, and of course that there is a link between good dental health and or poor dental health and poor heart health, for example. So this is important, and it always does, quite shock me that we expect people to pay for something so important up front, because boy, if you don't have good dental health, you know it, and it can be excruciatingly painful if you don't. I would note that I am pleased that we have seen that so many Nova Scotians, and again, I don't have the total number for Nova Scotia. I know what it is in my own federal riding, but 4,385 people are now covered under the new federal Canadian Dental Care Plan. And so it would be nice if maybe the provincial government stepped up and provided some vision care for Nova Scotians, because in the last year, my vision declined quite a bit. I don't need glasses to see far off, but I do for reading, and I went from a 1.5 to a 2, sort of over a couple of months. And if you can't see, it's hard to do a lot of tasks, and it's hard for Nova Scotians to have good overall health if you can't see, and if you can't see up close, you can't open your bottle of pills because you don't know which one it is. So I would just say that it's important. Both of these are important, and if the government is focused on improving the health of Nova Scotians, as we hear over and over again, it would be good if they were looking at programs to, in the case of dental health, augment the federal one, and in the case of vision health, could do our own program here. And so we did not hear, as my honourable colleague mentioned, we did not hear any concerns with this particular plan at law amendments. So our caucus will be supporting this bill.
If I am to recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness, there'll be to close debate on Bill number 459. The Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I move that we close third reading of Bill 459, the Health Professional Associations Continuation Act.
All those in favor of the motion is for third reading of Bill number 459, the Health Professional Associations Continuation Act. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, nay. That motion carries.
Bill 459, an act respecting the continuation of certain health professional associations.
Order that the bill do pass, and the title is read by the clerk. Order that the bill be engrossed. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would you please call Bill number 464, Stronger Workplaces for Nova Scotia Act?
Bill number 464, the Stronger Workplaces for Nova Scotia Act. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to move third reading of Bill 464, Stronger Workplaces for Nova Scotia. It has been more than 20 years since the last comprehensive review of the workers' compensation system. Our review was long overdue. I want to extend my sincere thanks to the hundreds of Nova Scotians who shared their thoughts, concerns, and suggestions during our consultations. Your input has been invaluable. I also want to thank the members of the Workers' Compensation Review Committee for their dedication. Additionally, I'd like to recognize all those who presented at law amendments to speak to the bill. And to my colleagues, and in particular, to the member of Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Peer, thank you for raising your voices and offering thoughtful amendments throughout this process. I'd like to take a moment to respond to the amendments and explain why we've chosen to move forward with the bill as it stands, Mr. Speaker. First and foremost, I believe we all share the same goal: providing Nova Scotia workers a stronger protections and support. And that's why we're acting quickly on the key recommendations from the review committee. This bill addresses return to work provisions under the Workers' Compensation Act. This includes requirements for employers to develop policy to prevent workplace harassment. These changes will allow us to move forward with regulations needed and to add detail and clarity. For example, Mr. Speaker, we've worked closely with partners to develop a clear definition of harassment. This definition will include bullying, sexual violence, and other forms of inappropriate conduct. These protections are critical to ensuring a safer and healthier work environment for everyone. Our Stronger Workplaces for Nova Scotia legislation is guided by the Meredith Principles, which are the foundation of the workers' compensation system. To maintain accountability, this bill mandates regular 5-year reviews. We will ensure that the review committee includes a diverse group of qualified members, Mr. Speaker. The Workers' Compensation Board is already working on a strategic plan to improve service standards. We will hold them to a high performance measures to ensure that these improvements benefit both workers and businesses. We are also strengthening our commitment to protecting workers who are dealing with a serious illness. No one should have to worry about their job while battling a major health issue. We are introducing a 27-week unpaid leave for employees facing serious illness or injury. This will ensure that workers have the job protection they need, allowing them to focus on their recovery without worrying about job security. These changes align with the federal government's employment insurance sickness benefits, providing a more comprehensive safety net. We've already heard from community partners who welcome these changes, and I thank them for their comments and their support. We've said that to improve job protection for those with serious illness or injury, we will make a real difference in people's lives. We're also creating a streamlined approach should health documentation be requested by an employer for serious illness leave. Our goal is to support both employers and employees with a clear, straightforward procedures. This legislation will further amend the Labor Standards Code to provide 5 unpaid sick days for general illness. This in addition to the 3 unpaid days already allowed for medical appointments and family illness leave. We are taking a more balanced approach, Mr. Speaker. Offering 5 days of unpaid leave is a significant step forward, and it's a change that is long overdue. Mr. Speaker, when I was first appointed as minister, I made a commitment to myself and my community that I would be, and I wanted to be, a minister of action. I would not shy away from making the changes that we needed to build stronger workplaces for Nova Scotia. The decisions we have made as a government and as a department are informed by the experiences and the feedback of Nova Scotians. And I take their concerns to heart, and we are committed to supporting them. And this is just the beginning, Mr. Speaker. With this bill, we are setting the stage for continued improvements that will positively impact all Nova Scotians. The bill will modernize the workers' compensation system. It will enhance the Occupational Health and Safety Act to include psychological health and safety. It will support workers dealing with serious illness or injury. It will strengthen our workplaces. And by doing so, Mr. Speaker, it will make our province stronger. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Recognize the Honourable Member Cole Harbour-Dartmouth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, we know the decision to extend job-protected leave from 3 days to 27 days ensures Nova Scotians facing a serious illness can take the necessary time off without fear of losing their job. In Nova Scotia, we pride ourselves on its people who desire and deserve good policy. There's no room for politics when it comes to good policy. And as always, I acknowledge and thank those Nova Scotians who contact us on a regular basis to point out where policy needs improvement. In this case, Kathy McNaughton of Westville, who contacted a member for Bedford Basin through the Canadian Cancer Society. Nova Scotians look to its government representatives to lead our province with good policy, and I recognize the dedicated work of the Minister and the Department of Labour, Skills and Immigration for engaging and consulting with community partners to form the bill that's before us for third reading today. This bill, Bill 464, will make such a meaningful difference in the lives of Nova Scotians during their most difficult moments without the added mental stress of worrying about their job security. In closing, I would like to ask the Minister if she could, in her closing remarks, expand on the return to work provisions under Clause 18 respecting workplace harassment. It was tried to be amended for bullying, but I just would like to get more information with regards to what it's implying with this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Recognize the Honourable Member, Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to reaffirm the Nova Scotia NDP's support of this bill and of the step forward it is taking in protecting Nova Scotian workers and modernizing WCB. I said this in second reading, and I want to acknowledge these people again. To every single worker who came before my office and my colleagues' offices, from the Liberals to the PCs, I want to thank them, because it takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength to be able to tell your story, especially when the final words I would often hear in my office would be, not only, especially for those experiencing trauma, not only have I experienced trauma in my workplace, but I've experienced trauma dealing with WCB. I feel re-traumatized with, and they would say, WCB gave me PTSD. If I didn't have it before, I have it now. So I want to thank every single one who came and told their stories, because it's truly remarkable, and the strength that they had to have. And some of them had to build themselves up. And some of them fell apart and had to rebuild themselves back up after telling their stories. There's a lot of them, every one of them was quite harrowing. And I want to thank the unions who pushed for this, and the Federation of Labor, who also pushed for this review. I want to thank the review committee. And I want to thank the minister for listening. In my experience in this chamber, when we put forward bills, you don't see them being read as they hit the minister's desk immediately. But I will always watch where my bills go and who's looking. And I will say this, the Minister of Labor always looks at the bills. And she wants to talk to you about those bills. And I would come to her when she became the minister with all my labor. Here's everything. Here's WCB. Here's protection for workers issues. And if you don't mind, during one of our conversations, like, oh, how do we fix it? And I said, don't worry, Minister. Within a day, I'm going to give you the roadmap in a bill. And she said, I'm going to watch for that. And she did. And I want to give this time to thank you, because without a minister actually taking action, our bills could sit on the order paper with nothing happening. And that hurts Nova Scotians, that hurts our communities. So I want to thank the minister for actually being a minister who actually takes action and takes it quite quickly, especially on the aspect of when I talked about WCB. So I thank you. During the review, I don't know how many of you had the privilege to go to the consultations. I did. I took advantage. I think I even showed up when I wasn't supposed to and tried to get myself into the room, because I knew it was important, and I knew so many people had a stake in it. And when I was in that consultation and I was hearing people telling their stories again, stories some of them I've already heard, and some of them I was just learning. And to actually have people in that consultation process taking notes and then asking follow-ups on those notes that they were taking it was extensive, and the consultation was great, as well as, again, to the ministers for saying, anyone who comes in late with their story, please send them my way. I want to hear them, and I'll pass them along. And also with the website, just keep sending them. They're going to be monitoring. Thank you. And so again, thank you for allowing that extensive consultation, because again, and please take some offense, I guess. Not often do we have this side of that side of the house doing this type of consultation that needs to be done. So before a bill comes forward. So thank you. And there are positives in this bill. There are positives. The serious illness leave, wonderful. Because the Canadian Cancer Society has been advocating for this, so have many others. This brings us in line, as the minister has said, with the federal employment insurance timeline, and for people suffering from serious illness or injury, knowing that their job is protected while they take the necessary steps to heal is important. Another positive is that it updates the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Workers deserve a safe workplace, free from harassment. I'm glad to see that this bill takes concrete action towards this by requiring employers to implement the harassment prevention policy. I will, though, say putting harassment into the putting bullying into the definition of harassment is probably not the best way to go, considering they are two distinct things. And bullying is something, and to all the ministers here, bullying is something that is happening in your departments, especially Department of Community Services. I hear about that department a lot from many, many people. They're too scared to, I'm sorry, the minister's speaking there, and they're too scared. They're too scared to talk about it, but they do, because guess what? There has been a committee struck to deal with that bullying. There's been a committee.
Order. There is a member speaking. I ask that everybody respects that member is speaking. I recognize the honourable member of Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Peer.
Madam Speaker, there has been a committee struck within the Department of Community Services to deal with that bullying. And so it is real. It is something that is happening. We need to change that culture. And so, Madam Speaker, again, I ask the minister to please think about adding bullying as its own distinctive issue. Another highlight is the move to regular reviews of WCB. The recent review was the first one in, I think, 24 years or so. That should never have been. The review should always happen within 5-year, 10-year cycles, because it's just been too outdated. And I want to actually speak to the Nova Scotia Federation of Labor's comments from the news, because it was a good news story. And the president of the Federation said, "We are pleased to see the government taking steps to improve the workers' compensation system. We support the idea of reviewing the system every 5 years and look forward to collaborating with both the government and stakeholders. Injured workers would experience several benefits from improved awareness and understanding of the workers' compensation system. With better understanding of their rights and the processes involved, injured workers can make more informed decisions regarding their claims, treatment options, and return to work strategies." And I'll table that. Despite this, we have heard from the labor unions at Law Amendments, representing thousands of Nova Scotians, workers that there were many clear and simple ways to improve upon this bill and ensure greater protection for workers. We listened thoughtfully through the several amendments presentations and pored over the pages of submissions and brought several changes in response to yesterday as proposals to this House. And this included adding a clear definition of serious illness that matches that used federally for the employment insurance program. And that made sense to us. If you need to take the leave for serious illness and we're creating job protection, we should define serious illness as employment insurance does. It made perfect sense to us, and we thought that was an achievable amendment. Clarifying and improving the documentation process. So with that, we were just trying to basically, what this government talks about all the time, and that's streamline. Why burden an individual who is ill, going through treatments, with having several documents that they have to have? So our concept was the employment insurance requires a medical certificate. That should just be good enough and accepted by all employers. And if the employer didn't think it was good enough, then they would have to pay for that employee to go and get a further document. That made absolute sense to us. It's streamlining, and it's also taking the burden off of our healthcare system and off of the individuals that is going to be seeking treatment. Including paid sick days, as the NSGEU noted in their law amendment submission, unpaid sick leave is a disincentive for people to stay home while ill and creates more financial stress and disadvantage during a time when many families are already living through an affordability crisis. It was highlighted in law amendments by CUPE that no number of unpaid sick days is meaningful if workers cannot afford to take them. Madam Speaker, the NDP has been championing paid sick leave for years. We have been championing paid sick days since 10 paid sick days since 2020. When we had COVID, and it was recommended that 14 days was required for quarantine. So 10 paid sick days made absolute sense. Our chief medical officer of health has stated, Dr. Strang has stated, that that was a good policy in many committees where he attended as a witness and was asked on this policy. And he even expanded saying, it's not just COVID-19, it's having the flu, it's salmonella poisoning. This just made sense. And so we will continue to push for paid sick days because it truly is only those who can afford to take the unpaid sick days that unpaid sick days actually has advantage to. Because if you are a clerk in a grocery store, if you are a server at a restaurant, if you are a single parent trying to make the ends meet, if you are someone who works as a custodian, it does not work for you. You are going to go to work sick because you can't afford to miss that paycheck. And it also makes sense to the employers of this province, because if one worker gets sick and comes into work, they're getting everybody sick. We've seen it in this legislature. Someone comes in sick, and oh boy, does it go through this legislature fairly quickly. It makes sense when we tell people to stay home while you're sick, to give them the ability to do that by giving them paid sick days. Expanding the inclusion and harassment in the OHSA is also included, OHS to also include workplace bullying, as I've said before. This was something that came to us in law amendments through the presenters. It is also something that many provinces across this province recognize the distinctness between what is bullying and what is harassment. We heard in law amendments how prevalent workplace bullying is, and that many other provinces, again, have already included this. And we need to do that, and it needs to be distinct from harassment because it is a totally different animal unto itself. Nobody should have to go to work and be bullied. We tell our kids not to bully. We tell our children not to bully. We wear our pink shirts. and we say no to bullying. And yet it is pervasive in the workplace. Adults bullying other adults. It is just so pervasive, and like I said, I've had people coming into my office calling me. They don't want to put it in emails. They want a phone call. They want to see me in person, because if it ever got out that they're being bullied at work. For one example, is somebody who is sensitive to sensitivity. And another employee, I think actually was a manager, would wear their cologne very heavily every day, and that worker would have to be sent home every day. That's one example. Another example is somebody who is was very sensitive to scents, but also fumes. Forget if it was their office or their little desk space, cubicle, thank you, was moved to underneath the garage where they could smell the exhaust fumes every day. Others have been bullied by having their schedules change. Somebody would go into their computer that morning and find that their schedule has been changed from a week ago. All of a sudden, instead of working at 8 that they thought they were supposed to be working at, they're supposed to go to work be at work at 7. Others would be, some people couldn't take cases because of conflicts of interest, and they would continue to be put on those cases that they have a conflict with every day, and they'd have to go back every day and say, I have a conflict with this, I've already declared it. And guess what? The next time that case came up, guess what? They were given it again. That is part of bullying. When someone is telling you, I have a conflict, and someone is continuously trying to put you on that case. When your time changes, by the way, which is against the collective agreements, to actually change a person's schedule without telling them and without their permission within 2 weeks, that's bullying. And so it is pervasive, and it needs its own distinctness. The minister discussed that the Meredith principles do guide WCB. But it's been a long time since any worker has seen those principles actually guiding WCB. Ask any worker, did you have to fully prove that you were injured on the job? Did you have to fully prove, show all the documentations that your PTSD was due to your job?
4 times.
How many times did that worker have to do it? Guess what? It went to tribunals and WCAT in order for them to finally prove that their injury occurred at work. The first step in the Meredith, one of the first things in the Meredith principle states, it does not matter how the injury occurred. And that is why the minister may say that the Meredith principles guide WCB, but when was the last time we've seen those principles actually reflected? When has a worker not had to prove 100 times over that their injuries occurred at work and how it occurred? Also, how long has it been? How many times have we said WCB is not fully funded? That's part of the Meredith principles of WCB being fully funded. That is why it must be enshrined within the legislation so that WCB so that the Meredith principles can actually be reflected. Making sure employees' return to work plans are guided by the doctor's advice and meaningful and flexible work is offered as an alternative is incredibly important. As I've said in this chamber a number of times, so many workers are being forced back to work because a WCB doctor who has never touched the patient, never seen the patient, never treated the patient, is saying it takes this amount of time for that surgery or that injury to heal. And that's it. WCB cuts you off. That's it. WCB will cut you off because it takes 8 weeks for that bone to heal. So regardless of anything happening, there it is. You go back to work, you're cut off, you're forced to go back to work, and guess what happens? An injury reoccurs. So, taking a doctor's advice, the physician, the person that is treating the injured worker must be taken into consideration, or else we're going to have more burdens on our healthcare system as long as those doctors' advice goes unheard and ignored. And the return to work plan has to be meaningful so that workers feel like they are contributing to their workplace and not demeaning. And that was one of the things that was raised by the presenters as well. And finally, requiring that there's adequate employee representation in each of the WCB reviews going forward. That's incredibly important, because with the board makeup as it is now, we have heard that there are problems, that some of the employee representatives aren't actually, some of them have, over the past number of years, have not been exactly employee representatives. Same with the review. We've heard the same thing. We know the president for the Federation brought up that there were issues with the makeup and the formation of the review committee, that some of the people that were put on there did not wholeheartedly reflect a worker, an employee. They weren't in that kind of job prescription. Also, going back to WCB, is most often than not, WCB used to take into consideration what the Federation of Labor has put forward as their worker representative, and that has not occurred. And so when they were talking about the review, it should be made up of one injured worker, one injured worker, one worker representative, and one union representative. And it should be declared in the legislation so that there is no issues later. And it makes sense. If you're going to do a review of the committee, the worker should be the first and foremost on those committees. The injured worker is highly important to this process. The worker is highly important, and so is that unionized worker who has many job protections. And unionized workers all want to see non-unionized workers lifted up and protected as well. So that is one of the reasons why we think that that was a good amendment. And it was disappointing that this government did not take these insightful ideas brought forward in law amendments and put them into the final piece of legislation during our committee of the whole. It was very disappointing, and I hope that at some point the government will revisit that decision. I think there's lots of opportunities for future work to improve not just this bill, but workers' protections overall. And I hope to see continued action from this minister and from this government. And with that, I take my seat. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm just going to be quick. I just wanted to stand up and give another example of bullying. Unfounded accusations against government employees by leaders, people that are supposed to be leaders, Madam Speaker. We just heard the member stand on her feet and make accusations against an entire department. And what I will say is take the partisanship out of this, starting with the member from Bedford-Basin to the former minister of Pictou West, all the way to the member from Richmond. There was an emphasis on inclusion, on employee support, and wraparound services for the people that work in that department. They do a difficult job. It doesn't matter if it's this department or any department. To hear an elected official and an MLA who is a supposed community leader stand on their feet and make accusations, unfounded accusations like that, and when asked to table something, said there's nothing to table. Madam Speaker, we as leaders have to do better. Our words matter. These individuals work for us. They work for Nova Scotians, and they do a fantastic job right across this province. And they do some of the most difficult jobs where they go home at night upset, crying, sometimes feeling beat down. And the people in this House, no matter what we think our job is, it's also to support them because they support us, Madam Speaker. And I just think it's kind of insulting. I think it's kind of insulting because that is a form of bullying. It certainly is a form of bullying. If you were in any other profession and you stood there and accused other employees of something and had no evidence to back it up, that is bullying. And it does a disservice you can say whatever you want about myself as minister, and I've got big shoulders, I can deal with it. But the previous ones that have come before me, who work very hard on bullying and sorry.
I ask that you speak to the bill. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Community Services.
That worked extremely hard. The former ministers on this side and the former ministers on that side that worked extremely hard to make sure that there was workplace safety, that their employees felt supported, that they dealt with bullying, that there was inclusion in the workforce. And it's not perfect, and we know there's more to do, and that's why this minister is bringing these bills forward. That's why she's listened to the recommendations. But for somebody in a leadership position to stand up and accuse an entire department of being bullies, Madam Speaker, shows zero leadership.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Yarmouth.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm happy to stand and speak in favor of this piece of legislation. I do want to thank the government and give credit where credit's due to the minister on particularly changing the sick leave protection here in Nova Scotia. This legislation will change us from being the worst in Nova Scotia, only ensuring that people that are dealing with the most challenging sicknesses and illnesses that they can possibly deal with, they were only protected, currently are only protected for 3 days. Their job's only protected for 3 days. This will bring us in line with the federal government's employment insurance program, which is 27 weeks. This, of course, is a major change for workers and certainly a much greater protection for them as well. Again, during the most difficult fight of their lives for a lot of these folks. I do have to mention that I'm also proud of our team for fighting for this. Back in the fall session of 2023, our caucus took a stance on this issue. We filibustered till 12 o'clock every night for close to 2 weeks until the government supported a resolution that was passed by our caucus, resolution number 826, that was moved by the member for Bedford Basin. And I'll read the resolution and table it for the sake of the record. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the federal government changed employment insurance rules in December 2022 to allow persons who were suffering from illnesses to access employment insurance for up to 26 weeks. And whereas Nova Scotia labor law currently only guarantees employees working in provincially regulated industries a maximum of 3 days unpaid leave due to illness, which is insufficient for people with serious illnesses such as cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and MS. And whereas the Minister of Labour and Skills and Immigration will discuss the issue of leave for chronic illness during a meeting of her federal and territorial counterparts in the new year. Therefore, be resolved that the House of Assembly direct the Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration to consult and study this issue, discuss it with her provincial and territorial counterparts with the intention of providing Nova Scotians facing serious illness while working in provincially regulated industries with job-protected unpaid leave, and report progress back to the legislature by spring session of 2024. We, of course, missed that session, but this resolution was passed without waiver, without notice. And again, this is another example of the impact that the opposition can have when we are pushing for the right ideas in this province. And certainly, I do want to commend the member for Bedford Basin for another really important notch in her legacy belt of service to this province. This idea was first brought to us by the member for Bedford Basin. She heard in her capacity as an MLA from constituents who were not protected, who lost their jobs when they were fighting for their life. She certainly got our caucus on board, who again fought hard with long hours that were called by the government for, I believe, at least 2 weeks, if not longer, to ensure that this resolution was passed. And on that day that this resolution was passed, the filibuster ended. But I know we would not have gotten this work done if we didn't have the support of the Minister of Labour and Skills and Immigration. So I know that, and I can speak about that minister's character. That is a minister that cares deeply about service and helping individuals. She takes her role and responsibility seriously, and we saw today that she's also willing to show leadership within her own caucus and take stances that aren't necessarily in line with government positioning. And I want to commend her on that. And I think this is another example of that minister listening to opposition members and being willing to move forward when ideas that we are fighting for are good and will be helpful for people. So I think this is a good day for the House once this bill passes third reading, and I think it's a good day for Nova Scotians when they see that sometimes cooperation does happen in this House and does lead to important changes, and certainly that's worth celebrating because this will help those dealing with the greatest challenges of their life, sickness, and in some cases, their own mortality will at least give them the peace of mind knowing that they're not going to lose their job at the same time because they didn't show up work for 3 days. And with those few words, Madam Speaker, I'll take my seat.
If I am to recognize the Honourable Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration, it will be to close debate on third reading. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to thank the members opposite for their encouraging words, their supporting words, and of course, the emphasis on continued action, Madam Speaker, I think will not be ignored. And I again want to thank law amendments and others who have brought forward recommendations to government. But Madam Speaker, I know what we brought forward is a strong bill for Nova Scotians. And I am so encouraged by the collaboration and cooperation, of course, when we work together wholeheartedly, that positive things can happen, and we've made significant change to come, Madam Speaker. We know we need a workers' compensation system that's going to be sustainable for years to come. And so the recommendations of the review committee will do exactly that. We want to make sure, and I emphasize this because it was brought up, I know that folks were concerned about the safe return to work, Madam Speaker, and that will be so highlighted to make sure that an injured worker is not being forced back, but it's that safe return to work, which is another reason why that communication has to happen between workers and employers. And now with this legislation, it's going to happen. And I also want to thank the members for their comments around the serious illness, because we know how significant, Madam Speaker, that piece is going to be. And I recognize the resolution that was brought forward and making sure in my commitment to myself to be a minister of action that I listened And we delivered on that commitment, Madam Speaker, through that resolution, and I am so proud to be able to say that we are all going to get this one across the finish line. Madam Speaker, I struggled a little bit to make it personal, but I think it's important to share it at this point in time. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I wanted to make sure that I used that experience to make the lives of Nova Scotians better. And it was a conversation with my older sister who said to me, use this to do something. And this is really what motivated me to speak to the department and say, what can we do, Madam Speaker? And so those conversations had happened in 2022 after my diagnosis. But Madam Speaker, I know that I'm not the only one who has had a diagnosis, and we've spoke about this in this House. So many others have shared their experience. But serious illness touches the lives of all of us, Madam Speaker, in some way or another. And so recognizing that the Canadian Cancer Society has brought this amendment forward and asked for us to deliver, and we have, Madam Speaker. So I'm just so proud to be able to say that workplaces in Nova Scotia will be stronger. And we all can get behind that, Madam Speaker, because it's the right thing to do.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And with those words, I move to close debate on third reading of Bill 464.
The motion is for third reading on Bill 464, Stronger Workplace for Nova Scotia. Would all those in favour of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried.
Bill 464, an act respecting stronger workplaces for Nova Scotia.
Ordered that the bill do pass and the title be as read by the clerk. Ordered that the bill be engrossed. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That concludes government business for the day. I move that the House do now rise to meet again on Tuesday, September the 17th, between the hours of 1 p.m. and 6 p.m. Government business will include Committee of the Whole House on Bill 455, and law amendments will be held on Monday, September 16th, commencing at 9 a.m. Thank you.
The motion is that the House rise to meet again on September the 17th, September the 17th, between the hours of 1 p.m. and 6 p.m. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried. We stand adjourned until Tuesday, September 17th. Thank you.